what I do is I use the science of behavior to do a couple of things. I use it to treat challenging behaviors or maladaptive behaviors. I work with families and with staff to decrease those challenging behaviors, but I also work with families and staff to teach replacement behaviors and to teach skill acquisition goals to children and adults and toddlers. And the science of behavior that we use is applied behavior analysis. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about applied behavior analysis and how it uses science to really address the functions of behavior to allow you to treat the why a behavior is happening, to see and teach other skills so that needs can still be met in a more socially appropriate way. So here we go. Maybe. Okay. Behavior overview. So what is behavior? Behavior is anything a person does that can be observed or measured. Behavior is not emotions and feelings or mental concepts, although those things can be defined behaviorally, right? So we're not going to define a behavior as someone is anxious or they have anxiety. We're going to define it by things that we can observe and see. They're pacing, they're breathing heavy, they're wringing their hands. That's behavior. That's something we can see and something that we can measure, right? And what is challenging behavior? Challenging behavior is behavior that is harmful to self or others or property. And it interferes with the daily functioning of an individual. And it's disruptive to one's learning environment. And it's also defined by society. And that's an important piece. We intervene on skills that are applied to an individual's life. So we want to better their life, so let them have more access to the community. And a lot of the ways that we do that is by teaching more socially appropriate behavior so they have better acceptance and better access to the community in which they live in. So why does challenging behavior occur? It occurs because it works for them. It is being reinforced. It may be reinforced by us or by a teacher or by a peer or by something in the environment, but they're getting a need met, so it's continuing to happen. All behavior is learned. It's a product of the environment, and an individual does something in the environment, parents, siblings, teachers, react in some way, which is why it continues. So again, just driving the point home here that behavior continues because it's getting the person something they want or something that they need. So the bottom line, if challenging behavior is occurring, the environment, either the physical environment or the people in the environment, are supporting it somehow. But that's great news because that means that we can change that. We can manipulate the environment in terms of lighting, in terms of stimuli on the wall. And we can also manipulate the environment by our interactions with that individual, how we approach them and also how we respond to a behavior. So what that means is that traditional parenting or teaching may not get us the results that we want, and we need to assess and plan. So a lot of times when I start working with families, they say, well, they should know better. When I say knock it off, they should know to knock it off. They should know better. And you're right. A typical kid might be able to know better. But when we're seeing that we're not getting the results we want, that's when the traditional parenting and approach isn't going to work. So we need to determine the function and address the behavior functionally. So the main goals in addressing challenging behavior, there's 3 things that we're going to do. 1, we're going to figure out what the person is getting for engaging in the challenging behavior. 2, we'll figure out a way to prevent the person from getting that outcome for engaging in that challenging behavior. And 3, we're going to figure out other appropriate ways for the person to get the desired outcome. That means we're going to teach a replacement behavior, something more socially appropriate. So applied behavior analysis, the science of behavior, lots of research out there that shows that there are 4 functions of behavior. So 4 reasons why behavior occurs and continues to occur. One is to gain attention. Social attention, and sometimes getting bad attention is better than no attention at all, right? So celebrities, no press is bad press, right? No, so with some kids, bad attention is just as good, right? The second function is to gain access to something. Tangible items like food, toys, activities, locations. The third is to escape, avoid, or delay something undesired. So demands, work things that are hard, social situations, environmental variables, something that's too loud or too hot, etc. So I have a lot of escape maintain behavior when I'm trying to write a report. Sometimes I will pick up let me check Instagram. Let me check Facebook. I should check my mail, right? Those are escape maintain behaviors because I am getting out of having to do that report that I'm needing to get done, right? 4, automatic is the 4th function. And automatic means that something about engaging in that behavior is desirable. We'll get into some examples of these and what that looks like. So some automatic behaviors are visual stimulation, auditory stimulation, or the alleviation of pain or discomfort. So you might see some hand flapping or rocking. Those are some possible automatic reinforcement behaviors. So here's some examples. The example of attention. Jill is playing by herself while mom talks to little brother. Jill throws a toy against the wall, and mom walks to Jill and says, "Hey, what's wrong? Don't throw your toy, it's gonna break," right? The behavior was Jill threw the toy and it hit the wall. What was the consequence? What happened? The outcome? Mom gave her attention, talked to her, right? So if Jill is wanting mom's attention and wanting to talk to mom, what might she be likely to do in the future? Throw that toy against the wall. Got mom's attention last time, might work again, okay? Here's an example of access to a tangible item. Liam sees a candy bar. Liam screams. Dad says, "Oh, you want the candy?" and gives him a piece of chocolate, right? What was just reinforced here? Liam screaming, right? So next time Liam sees candy and he wants a piece and Dad's there, what's he likely to do? Scream to get that candy, right? Here's an example of escape. Katie's asked to eat her vegetables. She takes a bite and she gags. She's excused from the table. Katie, that's enough, right? So the behavior here is she takes a bite and mom says, "Get out," right? So what's likely to happen next time a veggie's in front of her and she doesn't want to eat it? She's gonna gag and then hopefully get excused because that's what's happened in the past, right? Automatic was our 4th function. An example of automatic is Scott is sitting alone on the couch. He pushes both thumbs into his eyes. And when he pushes those, he sees those like little colored dots that you see sometimes when there's a lot of pressure called phosphines. So what's the behavior? He's pushing into his eyes. What is being reinforced here? He likes something in and of that. He likes seeing those colored dots. So when he's wanting to see some visual stimulation, he's likely to push into his eyes again to see those. Okay, something in and of that behavior is reinforcing to him. So your turn to identify. Yeah.
I have a 3.5-year-old daughter that picks her nose until it bleeds. We have had her sit down. Don't do that. I've had her clap her hands. Okay, you want to clap your hands? Let's clap your hands. I've had her put her hands behind her back so she can't do her nose. I've ignored her, and you can just repeat.
Sure.
And so it has gotten so bad that her bed is just letting in the warning.
Okay.
From picking so bad. It seemed to get real bad for a while, and now it's kind of tapered off. Okay, so now as soon as she puts her fingers in her nose, we just turn away and kind of ignore it.
Mhm.
That's mostly working,
Okay.
but sometimes not. So how do you handle that?
You didn't throw me a lob. You threw me a hardball right off the bat. I would assess. I would do some assessment to really kind of pin down what is the function of the behavior. So just hearing that, kind of off the cuff, it sounds like there's a couple different things going on. I think automatic at first because of the nose picking, and you said we've tried different things and it hasn't stopped. But then at the very end, you just said, we've just been turning our backs and ignoring her, and it's starting to decrease, which then tells me as a behavior analyst, well, if you're not providing attention to it and it's going away, she's no longer getting what she's been needing and wanting. So it could be attention-based. So I would do some assessment to really tease out what's happening right before she's picking her nose, how long she's picking her nose, what's happening right after it, are there certain times of the day where she's picking her nose? Is it like when she wakes up, before she eats, when she knows that morning routine is about to happen, or she has to transition to an unpreferred activity? I would take a lot of data and do a lot of parent interviews to really see what the function is, and then from there I'd be able to develop a function-based treatment for you. Yeah. Okay, so what's the function? Tommy is sitting by himself at his desk, and he makes a fart noise, and all the other kids laugh. What do you think the function is? Attention, right? Absolutely. How about this one? Shelly's favorite blanket has been put away on a shelf because she's too old to carry it. Shelly screams and cries and kicks, and then her mother gives her the blanket. Access. Teacher tells Jimmy, sit down and start working. Jimmy knocks over his chair. The teacher ignores Jimmy and instructs the rest of the classmates. He doesn't sit down or start to work. The timer goes off, indicating that free play is over. Chad bites the therapist when she helps him transition. The therapist prompts Chad to transition back to the table and says to Chad, stop that! That hurts me. I don't like that. Attention, right? How about this one? Timer goes off, indicating that free play is over. Chad bites that therapist. This time the therapist moves away from Chad and he gets 5 more minutes of free play. Timmy's mother tells him to clean his room. Timmy begins asking his mother about her day. Timmy's mother responds and continues the conversation for 5 minutes. Stan sees a peer playing with his favorite blocks. Stan spits in the peer's face. The peer runs away crying, and Stan gets the blocks all to himself. Access. Scott sits at the couch and he pushes his thumb into his eyes, and his father says, stop, Scott! Mm-hmm. What's happening right at the end here? Attention, right? So this is one kind of like your daughter with the nose picking, could be automatic, could be attention. When I'm trying to tease it out at the beginning, I'm looking at what's happening right after. That's going to give me my best picture right off the bat to kind of get an idea, a working hypothesis of why it's happening. And what's happening right after is he's getting some attention. Stop doing that. So that's where the beginnings of my assessment would lead me to believe that this could be attention maintained, and I would further assess to make sure that it is rather than automatic.
Question.
Yeah.
There's no automatic examples, which it seem like the hardest ones to break.
And the automatic ones are the hardest ones to break. So automatics examples are self-injurious behaviors, nail biting, picking, could be hitting themselves.
We're going to get all the
Rumination, absolutely. So and we're going to talk about some of that, and we're going to have a lot of time at the end for you to ask questions and for me to kind of give you some examples of some ABA procedures that could be beneficial. Yep. So why are they doing that? That's what we need to figure out, the reason why the behavior is happening. So we need to determine and define the behavior of concern. So it's super important for us to operationally define the behavior. And then from there, we're going to collect data and gather information of what environmental variables could be contributing to the problem. We'll analyze that data, and then we'll determine functions to determine why or under what condition is this behavior occurring. So defining the behavior of concern is step one. So for this, we're going to focus on what the behavior looks like, right? So we're going to talk about the topography. So instead of just saying aggression, they're aggressive, we want to define what that looks like. So any attempt or actual hitting, kicking, biting of another person. They're non-compliant. They're just non-compliant. Well, what does that look like, right? So we can all take the same kind of data. Anytime Stephen does not begin completing an instruction he was given within 10 seconds, that's not compliant, okay? Spitting. Expelling saliva from the mouth in the direction of others. Okay? So on the ground, we wouldn't count it. Towards you, I'd count it. Okay? And the purpose of this is it allows multiple people to objectively agree on whether the behavior occurred or did not occur, which allows for more accurate data collection. The second step is collecting data. So the first thing that we as behavior analysts do is that we always look for any potential medical causes for the behavior and rule those out. So if we're seeing some of that automatic behavior or even some escape maintained, attention maintained, access maintained, we're first going to see, do they have a headache? Do they have a toothache? Is there something else going on that they're not able to fully communicate to us? We might have you take them to the dentist or the doctor just to get a clean bill of health before we intervene behaviorally. We also want to know how often the behavior occurs. So we're going to collect baseline data to determine intervention effectiveness. And we'll also look to see what type of data collection best captures the behavior. So maybe maybe there's a tantrum behavior and they might have 27 tantrums a day that are 42 seconds long around there. So we want to know the frequency. Or they might have one tantrum a day that's 2.5 hours long. So we'd rather know the duration of tantrums per day and see it decrease from there. So we're really going to look and see what's the best way to collect the data so that we can show a decrease in those challenging behaviors. And finally, we're going to look at what are the environmental variables surrounding the behavior. So we're going to look at the antecedents, what's happening right before, and the consequences, what's happening right after. So all kinds of different ways to collect data. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It could be tally marks on a piece of paper, use a golf ball or baseball clicker, paper clips or pennies in a pocket, moving them over, iPhone or iPad apps, a stopwatch, or a clock. So where we start, if we're coming into the home to help determine the function of the behavior and set up a behavior plan for you, where we always start is we always start with collecting antecedent behavior or consequence data, which will be referred to as ABC data from here on out of the presentation. So we want to know what's happening right before the behavior occurs. That's known as the antecedent. So I asked Joe to do his homework. We walked into Walmart. Told John he couldn't have the toy, asked Susie to brush her teeth. What's happening right before the onset of that behavior? We also want to know what's happening right after the behavior occurs, known as a consequence. I put Joe in timeout, told her to stop, asked John if he was okay, gave Fred the toy. Knowing these two pieces, what's happening right before, what's happening right after, is going to allow us to start to determine the function of that behavior and then allow us to develop some replacement behaviors so that they can still get that need met. If they're wanting attention and they're engaging in challenging behavior, we're going to collect this data. We'll find out that it's attention and we'll teach more appropriate ways to gain attention. So they're still getting that need met. This is an example of an ABC data sheet. So here you can see, you can just check what's happening right before. Access was denied, they want something, there was an interruption or a transition, there was the behaviors, they were crying, whining, this is specific to a certain child. And then the consequence, we physically guided them to comply, we ignored it, we used, we blocked access to the reinforcement. So this is a data sheet that I would make for the family and for the staff to take data on a specific behavior for a specific client. So why do functions matter? Functions matter because they allow for effective treatment of the problem behavior. What we can do once we know the function is we can stop providing the thing or the consequence that's making that behavior continue, and we can provide that thing or consequence following more appropriate behaviors. And we can provide that thing or consequence free to make it less valuable and therefore less likely that they will engage in the challenging behavior. So let's talk about some strategies that we can use. So we're going to talk about some antecedent strategies and some consequence strategies and also some replacement strategies. So some prevention strategies for attention-seeking behavior. One strategy is provide attention or reinforce appropriate behaviors. So this one is nice. You can do at home, you can do it easily. Sometimes when you're in the middle of challenging behavior, there's a tantrum occurring or your child is not complying with your directions, it's really easy to kind of get sucked in and only focus on the negative that they're doing. So you can pay attention to the appropriate things that they're doing. So if they're, you've asked them to clean up their toys and they haven't cleaned up their toys, but in the past maybe they would have like thrown the toys or ran away or cried and kicked on the ground, you could provide them some praise for what they're doing. Thanks for staying there, staying by your toys. I can't wait till you get those toys cleaned up. You're providing the attention for the positive things that they're doing. You can also provide lots of attention frequently for nothing, and we call this non-contingent reinforcement, right? If they're getting lots and lots of attention all of the time, they're less likely to engage in that behavior to get attention. Just like if I am eating lots and lots and lots of Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza all the time, my Lou Malnati's pizza seeking behavior, it's not going to be as high because I'm already getting it for every meal, right? This one is really great with the non-contingent reinforcement. There are two tools that you can use out there to kind of help you get on the track because sometimes it's hard. You're making dinner, you're doing laundry, you're having to take the dogs out. Like it's hard to remember like every once in a while to like look and see something good they're doing and comment on it and give attention. So two tools that I recommend to the families that I work with. One is called the Motivator, Motivader, and it is a resetting timer. And it shakes on you. So you can set it for an interval if you want it to be every 10 minutes. You click it to 10, you put it on run, you put it on your pants or on your shirt, and every 10 minutes it'll shake on you, and then it reminds you, I need to say something, I need to give some attention. And then it reminds you to find them and say, wow, look how great you're playing the Wii with your brother, that's amazing. And then it resets on its own, you don't have to push anything, you can go back to washing the dishes. 10 minutes later when you're getting the trash ready to take it outside, it'll buzz again and you're like, oh, so then you'll finish taking the trash out, you'll come back inside and you'll say, hey, wow, you guys are coloring so nice, this is amazing. So it helps remind you to be giving that positive attention, right? And life is busy and life is hard, so we get it. If it shakes and you're take the trash out. Just remember when you come back in to give that positive attention statement, right? Also, providing choices is a great way to give attention. I like to recommend to my families, allow choices for things that you don't care about, right? Do you want to wear your blue socks or your red socks? Do you want a green cup or a blue cup? Do you want to sit in this chair or that chair? Do you want me to buckle your seatbelt or do you want to? things that it doesn't matter what the answer is, start there. And that's going to be providing them a lot of attention because you're initiating that by setting up the choice, right? We can also use a token system in a behavior contract, and we're going to get into those two in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. Any questions so far? Some prevention strategies to address behavior that is maintained by access to tangibles are to provide preferred tangibles for appropriate behavior, right? So we had the example that Liam was seeing a candy bar, and then Liam was screaming, and then Liam was getting the candy bar. For this, we'll have him request it. It could be a sign for candy. It could be candy. It could be, can I have that candy bar? That candy bar looks good. Any way that he is requesting the candy bar, that's when we're going to provide that candy bar. We're also going to teach and reinforce new replacement behaviors. And a lot of the times, what we're seeing is that children are able to appropriately request what they want. In the past, a tantrum or refusal has been reinforced because sometimes it's easy, just here, right? I'm guilty of it. Everyone is guilty of it. But we really want to be teaching those new replacement behaviors, even if that means that we're having to give them the words at first. So they might be engaging in the tantrum, and we know what they want, and we're just asking them to say, iPad, whatever it is that they want. As soon as they echo it back, thanks for telling me that's what you wanted. Thanks for asking for that. Here you go. What's being reinforced then is that I stated what I wanted, then I got what I want. Yeah.
How do you fade that?
You can fade that a couple different ways. So if you're using a verbal prompt, you can either fade it from a full prompt. So if it's iPad, you start with iPad, and it could be I or iPad. So you're fading how much of the verbal you give them. You could also add a time delay in if you wanted. So you might be giving it to them like, you see that they're having a...
I meant fade so they don't always get the iPad upon request.
That's a tricky question, because then...
once you cement it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, you want to be reinforcing every request so that they're saying, I am asking for something, using my words, not engaging in this challenging behavior, and I'm getting what I want. Once that's established, then you start with, it depends on the child, you could start with a tolerating denials program. So it could be that they don't have access to the iPad, but they have access to something that's just as reinforcing. And then they don't have access to the iPad, but they have access to something that's meh. And then eventually the answer is no, right? Then it's no, you wait for 5 seconds without it, then you have it. Then I say no, you wait for 10 seconds without it, then you can have it. So you're shaping up how long they're waiting without it till eventually it's to a typical normal level of waiting without it. Yeah, I'll call you next time.
You're introducing something, and you've got a variety of environments that you need to try to have this be successful across. What recommendation would you give as to how you bring everybody on board with what you're doing? Because when they figure out that this is only happening in one world, and they go and play off 4 or 5 other ones and come home.
Yep, that's called behavior contrast. So what we like to do is we like to have team meetings in where we have all environments involved. So we'll have school there, we'll have parents there, we'll have all the therapists that are there. I had a team meeting for a client last night where there were 6 therapists there, mom was there, grandma and grandpa were there. They're all hearing how they're progressing, what targets we're on, that the client was being told to stop, but he's only able to stop if we're 6 feet away. Anything more than 6 feet away, he doesn't respond to our stop. So that's really good for them to know, so they know I'm only going to tell them to stop when we're working on it. When I'm 6, I need to stay within 6 feet or be closer. So it's really having that communication piece. I think that having a therapist or a BCBA to work with can really help because they can arrange and help you with that communication piece and organization piece and reach out because you guys have so much on your plate. Anyhow, it's nice for us to kind of coordinate that collaboration. Yeah. Did you have a question?
So I'm just thinking of like the requesting. So what I will get from my son though at this point is, will I ask for it nicely? You know, like that kind of a, so how do you, right, like get to that? So I'm trying to not reinforce a temper tantrum over getting something that he wants.
Sure.
So, you know, okay, well, maybe if you ask for it nicely, you can get it. But even in those cases, you can't always get it when you ask for it nicely. So then we have the temper tantrum again.
Sure.
So,
Sure. I think something you can do there is that you can let them know if you have a time where you know they can have it. You can't have it now, but you can have it. And I don't like to give time based. Like you can have it in a little bit, or you can have it in 20 minutes. I like to say you can have it after. Boom. Give an activity after you clean up this and put away your laundry. Like something definitive. And it can be a couple of different things, and you could even like write them out on a dry erase board so that they know. It's also really important to work on shaping it up. So let them know, like, yeah, you did use really nice words, but we can't have it right now. Maybe just make him wait like 2 minutes for it, and then let him have it if that's not possible. If it's something that
like
requires
what if we're in the middle of Walmart and he wants me to buy him this toy. Well, I asked for it nicely.
right.
You can't have it right now, you know, and then we have
Yep.
the temper tantrum in the middle of Walmart.
Yep.
Like that kind of
You
thing.
could maybe use an antecedent strategy of like setting up expectations beforehand and be like, okay, we're going to go into the store. This is a trip where we can't buy any toys. We're going to buy, some of the things we're going to buy today are we're going to buy eggs, we're going to buy bread, we're going to buy juice, we're going to buy milk. And then you say, what are 2 things that we're going to buy? Yeah, remember, we're not going to buy a toy. And then you can, when you get there, you can write, remember, we're going to buy, remember the 2 things you remembered? We're going to buy juice and we're going to buy bread. Then you can walk over there and then maybe let him pick the juice if you don't care which juice it is. So that he's still feeling like he has a choice and he is buying something even though it's not the toy. But kind of set it up for success. And then praise him when he gets out of the car. Oh my gosh, you are so amazing in the store. And if you have like if he likes goldfish or a gummy bear, give him a goldfish or gummy bear to reinforce that not throwing a tantrum behavior. Yeah, good question. Any other questions while we're here? Another thing is the non-contingent reinforcement. So providing those preferred tangibles for nothing. So sometimes just allowing them to have access on the iPad, on the Wii, a goldfish, a gummy bear, a fruit snack, not for anything, but just because. Teach and reinforce waiting, which is really hard to do, and teach and reinforce the tolerating of denial. So accepting no, which seems to be a really good topic in here of accepting no and then having to wait to access. And that's a hard strategy for all kids and adults. Yeah. Some prevention strategies for escape maintain behaviors. Again, providing choices. Having task interspersal, so mixing and alternating difficult non-preferred tasks with easier preferred tasks. So if your child is doing chores at home and you know that emptying the dishwasher is terrible and that they hate emptying the dishwasher, and every time you ask them to empty the dishwasher, you're going to get a lot of lip, and they're going to throw a fit, and it's just going to be ruin the evening. Have a couple of throw them some really easy tasks in there first, and then have them empty the dishwasher, then allow them to access something preferred right after, right? So we're kind of building that momentum of, you already did this chore, it was so easy, you did this chore, it was so easy, you did this chore, it was so easy, dishwasher, great, now you have whatever you want, right? Transition warnings. You can provide advance notice prior to transitions. So it could be tomorrow you're staying at dad's place, in about 5 minutes we're going outside. when Team Umizoomi episode is over, we're gonna turn the TV off and get in the car. Yeah, I see you had a question.
I'm gonna use that example tomorrow at your senior year. And where, the child goes at, and then it comes time to go to dance, or moms, or whichever case, and the child just doesn't want to. And the other parent chooses to just give them what they want, and say, okay, well, see you later, you can just stay home. And not, they basically give in to the tantrum, and not say, okay, well, you're going anyway. Like, how do you handle that?
Parent training. That's really big. A lot of what we do is we work really, really closely with the families, and we bring everyone to the table and say, like, these are the challenges we are having, and like you, mom or dad, engaging in this behavior is making me, the other parent, really struggle. And we work on coming up with a family plan where we all agree upon it, we all sign it, we all have our expectations, what we're gonna do, and data sheets around it. And we would come there for our sessions during handoff time or transition time. We'd be there about 20 minutes before so that the transition happens and it's successful. And we coach you guys through that. We deal with the challenging behavior, and then afterwards we powwow and be like, okay, here's what we saw, here's what we did, here's why we did it. Remember in the behavior plan, we said that if they threw a tantrum that we were going to restate the demand every 2 minutes. That's what I did, and that's why. And then I had to kind of physically prompt them to get in the car. But we do that piece for you until there's some instructional control, the expectations are set. Then we fade it and fade ourselves out and transition and give that to you to do. Yeah. Yes.
I think this is my struggle. I don't know if anyone else has this, but when you have a child with a disability and you just don't know if you're pushing too hard with the, so like for our son, for example, and I know that it's me, I know a lot of it,
Okay.
but he goes to school all day, he keeps it together, his teachers say he's an angel, I watch him listen to every other person, he follows directions, perfect.
Mhm.
Comes home, and even the doctors have said, oh, they need a chance to let it out, and you're the safe zone, and you're their comfort area. So being able to figure out when do I push and when do I not. So we're finding that behaviors at home, he screams, he has a tantrum, I want this, and he is relentless.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm exhausted at the end of the day, And I'm just like, oh. And I just want to stick to it, but it's like relentless. And then he'll start to do something that'll make you think something's wrong with them, and he gets to be like that.
Yep.
And so how do you know when has he had it, and here he is, can he not control it, can he control it, how much do I push? I think that's something when you have a child with disability is,
Sure.
how much more should we expect of him after he's just kept it together all day? And I'm not talking like 5 or 6 hours, we're talking 8 to 10 hour day.
Sure. A lot of you kind of feel
Yeah.
How do you know
similar.
when it's the behavior or when it's the condition?
Yeah, right. That's
Exactly.
the big struggle with.
Sure. So that's that's a tough one. The behavior analyst in me says he's holding it together in that classroom environment and in that community environment. So the skill is there. He's demonstrating the skill. So it is possible, and you can keep that expectation. But the wanting to love and I get it. So I would, again, I would assess. That's always where I'd start. I'd take some data to see what kind of behaviors are happening and when. Is it how old is your son?
He's 8.
Okay. So is it when he gets home from school or when he gets home from therapies? Is that when it's happening? Is it after dinner, before a shower, when it's time for home? I would see when it's happening.
Walk in the door, he
Okay.
and his sister, and then, they're 8 and 5, and they fight, they pinch, they hit, they get on each other. I looked at that's a typical thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then it's so hard to get him to chill, then he'll do something to her, and I want to say that that's what every other family's, when you have 2 typically developing children,
Sure.
I do hear that from our friends, I can't stand it.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
The duration and the intensity is a lot different.
Sure. Do you have a comment on this?
Maybe in conjunction dynamic of the environment overlay or mesh with kind of the comment about behavior versus condition, because they hold it together in a school day. The dynamic of that is multiple authoritative figures kind of really subscribing the environment for them, and everything is laid out, and it's very, you know, from Monday to Friday, that Monday's gonna look like Tuesday's gonna look like Wednesday, and it's just kind of the latent atmosphere. But they come home and they know you are always you, but that environment is extremely variable. It can be changed in any way they, you know, because it's home, it's the safe zone. And one person against one person versus staff of teachers and people against that child, and they hold it together through that day and they come home, they're doing the math. On the bus ride home, wherever, they know when they hit the door, she's here, she's not gonna leave me, she's gonna listen to everything I say, and whatever I do at the end of the day, she's still mom. It's.
We actually, he'll get home and then she'll just be exhausted, because that's what I'm saying. And he'll be like getting very upset, and then I'll walk away from him, and I'll walk out on the deck, and we live in an area where there's a lot of people walking around. He'll open the door, he'll like push it open, see that there's 3 people out there, turn it off, because he's not gonna embarrass himself in front of anyone else. He's fine with us.
Sure.
Like, I've seen him literally turn it off and realize, ooh, there's people out here, I'm not gonna have to. So it's like, I know he's got it so much, I think it's more me.
And you can, and you can start small by having like a schedule that he has some choice in when you set it up. So it could be like one weekend, you're like, hey, we need to have an after-school schedule. Can you help me make an after-school schedule of like what our afternoon and evening should look like? And like, there might be things that are non-negotiable for you, like dinner has to be at 6 o'clock and bath has to be at 7. But other than that, like he can choose, well, I want to do, I want to read when I get home for a while, and after I read, then I want to play outside. Then after I play outside, then I want to do this, and he'll never say, then I want to do my homework.
Right.
They won't offer that up. So then you could be like, so where do you want to put your homework? Do you want to put your homework before playing outside or before you take a bath? Like offer those choices there so that you're guiding it, but he's choosing and putting it in, and then it gives him some structure of this is what it's going to look like. Yeah.
Just real quick, if it makes you feel any better, my 2 children were completely Morris, well, I have 3 kids, but the 2 of them, we get home from camp, all 3 of them, and those 2 in the back, and it's that same age, it's the 8-year-old, and the 7-year-old, and the 9-year-old, I mean, scratch each other's eyes out, literally, like, just really go at each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's typical.
I know there's a lot of typical.
A lot,
So,
I
but in
mean,
your back of your mind, you're wondering, oh, is it?
so even that, yeah, the choices, I threw that out there right away when they get in I could see the look in their face, they just want to beat each other. And I said, what are you guys looking forward to doing? And then offer that out, and then talk about what they're going to do.
Mine are 19 autistic with Asperger's and 5-year-old at this point, what we call, I guess, whatever normal is. Same thing, they still scratch each other's eyes out. I have to send them in separate directions. You know, you go watch this, you go take your, or take your time out, unwind, because if I try to get them, like she said, if you try to get them to do anything church related the second they walk in that door, it's gonna be a fight you may not want.
Sure. Yeah, and if you're in, and that's an okay thing to do. So like this is like what we do when we're there for therapy. Sometimes the day has won and you don't have any fight left in you. It's okay to say, you know what? I just can't right now. If you're going to give in and not functionally address the behavior sometimes, it's going to happen. Do it early. Don't start fighting that fight and like be withholding attention, and then like they knock over the table in the dining room, then you're like, just stop. At that point, you just reinforce, oh, I just got to make it big and bad enough, and then they'll give me what I want. So what you can do if like, I have a proposal, I need to get to my boss tonight, I don't want to be up till 2 a.m. If you see that attention-seeking behavior coming, give in early. If you're saying like, Mom, why can't I? You know what, tonight you can't have that. I'm going to let you have that for 30. Do it right away rather than waiting 2 hours in when it's been gone after you. That way, it's not, you haven't set up that stage for, I just need to keep going, I need to make it bigger, I need to make it better, eventually she's gonna cave, I just gotta keep on going, I gotta keep on going, up the ante. You're reinforcing a much lower level of a behavior, which is easier for us to work with and for you to work with. Yeah.
One of the things we struggle with is actually time cluster. So like you were saying, have a schedule after school where, okay, we go outside after dinner.
Yep.
What happens on a rainy day? The only thing he wants is to go outside. Games, movie, nothing else is going to work. Or my kids and I were here, we were doing laundry, and I had to be inside. I can't go outside, and watch it.
Sure.
So because it's not a routine, and because he does it every day after dinner, that's me.
Yeah, so there you might be able to teach some flexibility, which is super hard too. But it could be that you write on the schedule like special activity, change in schedule, flexible time, and maybe you have like a bin of really cool toys that are restricted and he never gets access to those. But if it is a rainy day, you have them hidden under your bed in a box that he would never go in, and you're saying, oh, I know it's free. Hold on a second. And then you go upstairs and you get it and you bring it down. You can play with these cool things instead today, and maybe on a schedule it was like change in schedule, but it's such novel new things that he typically doesn't have access to that it might, he might be like, oh, this is really cool stuff. And then he plays with it and it gets put away, and go to Target, the dollar section, anytime you see something cool, maybe buy it to add to that bin so that you can switch things out. Might work.
What a rain jacket.
That's right. Poncho, right.
I don't know if it's like an extreme behavior, but whenever he's overstimulated, like the museum or the zoo, he is like a bee. He's here, and we can't keep up with him, and he doesn't stay. He's 11. He doesn't really stay close to us, so I feel like I spend the whole time like, Ian, get back here. If you walk farther than 5 feet away, you are gonna hold the diaper bag the rest of the trip, and just like trying to get him to stay close.
Do you make him hold the diaper bag for the rest of the trip?
I hold one side, and he holds the other side, so it's like one of those little leashes.
Okay.
So he can't go too much further, but he gets so distracted and so engaged in something for 5 seconds that I don't think thinks about anything else or knows anybody else is around, and that's like does he know, or is he just so into his own thing? What do I expect? Like, how do you do that out in the open?
Well, and, okay, I'm gonna spill the beans on both of us. Neither one of us is great about the follow-through with that. 1, 2, 4, 8, 12 warnings, before we can get his attention, and then, well, then the fight is, are you holding this, or are we escalating it further? Like, how does that, and the choice, I was gonna ask you about the choices. What if neither of the choices the kid wants?
They have to be,
But it's gonna be one of these two, go ahead and pick, and you don't want either of them, now what?
Sure. So, a couple things. I first talk to each other and be like, we're gonna give 4 reminders. If you're at, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 12. Don't say 2, because that's not gonna happen. Be realistic. Say, we're gonna give him 5, right? And then start from there. And then after that 5, hold each other to it. Be like,
But you don't tell them there's 5.
you don't. It depends upon the kid.
We'll exhaust them all so quick.
Yeah. Sure. And then you always want to be shaping it down so that the first time, because what's the most socially appropriate thing? Like first time I ask you to get it done, right? So you want to be shaping it down. Once you see like, 5, and he's doing it, drop it down to 4, then drop it down to 2. Then you want to be shaping it down so that you're always making progress. As for the choices, sometimes If you're offering him choices for things that he wants to do, things that are their reinforcer, then they have to be reinforcers. They have to be something that they want, otherwise they're not going to work for it. Just like if my boss, who's in the room today, if she said to me, hey, do you want to work for money or do you want to work for Cheetos? I'm gonna choose money every time, right? She's like, do you want to work for, coupons to Great America, or do you want to work for, something else like cloth? I'm gonna say neither. I don't want either. It has to be reinforcing to me, for me to do something that's hard, or something that's unpreferred, or something that's effortful. But you can throw choices in for things that don't matter, just to be giving that attention and that. So again, like the juice thing, or do you want to sit here? Do you want to sit there? Do you want to? We're gonna go to Walmart. Do you want to turn right on the street or left on the street? Like things like that are allowing them some buy-in and feeling like a little bit, in control, and then it doesn't matter. But if it's something where you need him to do something and you're gonna offer this as reinforcement, then it has to be something that they want.
Do you find particular, essences of these strategies prove to be more or less effective with particular age groups?
No, they are.
The calculating force that they have to know what you've already tried, or as strategies. And an older child versus a younger child, strategies that involve kind of coaxing them into something. They've already my son sometimes seems to be a few steps ahead and goes like a chess game. It's like, oh, I've seen that move, Mom. Next.
For sure, yeah. So we're always using the science of behavior or applied behavior analysis to develop our behavior plans, but what one principle might look like for a 3-year-old is going to look very different than what the plan looks like for a 17-year-old. So it's going to be maybe a bit more sophisticated and a bit more buy-in from them and a bit more intricate. It might have a few more components depending on the developmental age of the client. Yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, what I'm alluding to in the context of this conference and this environment is that you have a child that is chronologically of an older age, but might be operating from a more immature point of view about some things. Mm-hmm. They know what their physical resourcefulness might be, but their ability to really buy into what you're asking them to do to be appropriate, environmentally appropriate with their chronological age.
And I think that that's where we start as clinicians, is that our end goal is for that independence and for that social appropriateness for their chronological age, or as close as we can get. But we're going to be having targets along the way and providing reinforcement for steps that they're making in that direction until we get there. So we're not going to say, you're 14, you need to act like a 14-year-old, and right now you're acting like an 8-year-old. Act like a 14-year-old, and here's the plan I have in place to get you to act like a 14-year-old. We're gonna say, you're 14, we want you to be acting like a 14-year-old, you're acting like an 8-year-old, so we're gonna have a plan in place to get you acting like an 8.5-year-old, then to get you acting like a 9-year-old, then a 9-year-old in 3 months, and then a 9.5, then a 10. So, and we're gonna be reinforcing that and teaching those along the way so that they're learning and receiving that reinforcement as we're teaching more and more and more socially appropriate skills.
My son has a behavior that's piggybacked by another behavior. So we're working, he's nonverbal, and we are working with him to learn to use his communication skills. So he works for reinforcement that he really prefers. And when he gets it, he has another behavior almost out of frustration. So how do I can't take away that reinforcement because he just earned it. So how would you deal with that?
I think from there, talking with the therapists that have the plan in place, or the clinicians that have the plan in place, and seeing where's our clinical focus right now? Is our clinical focus on increasing language and increasing the requesting? If so, that's what we're gonna be focused on and wanting to increase, and we're going to put some plans in place to deal with the problem behavior. Or is our problem behavior, or is our focus right now on that problem behavior, and we want to decrease that in talking with them? I would tend to want to increase that communication and that language so they're learning to get their needs and wants met. But it,
The piggyback behavior is usually a self-inflicted injury, so I can't ignore that.
let's talk at the end, and I can kind of, yeah. But come up and talk with me at the end, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have, my daughter has behavior, she started biting her nails and kind of shut down in school when some other kid has a bad behavior. So there is a kid, we had a very autistic kid that shouts at nails and was not following directions. She does not like when other kids don't follow direction, her sister included, and she starts at home, if her younger sister starts not behaving, she cries. If kids at school, she bites her nails and becomes very anxious, shuts down, she doesn't like, she's not capable to learn in an environment like that. How do we, and we tried explaining to her, it's okay, they are the ones in trouble, that doesn't have anything to do with you, but it doesn't seem to work. So what is something that we can use in this situation?
Sure. Again, I'm going to be like a broken record. Everything's going to start with some assessment. So I would take that ABC data that we talked about earlier and kind of get a clear picture of what is happening right before and right after. It seems like maybe it could be escape
Yes,
maintained, or it could be automatic. There could be a couple things going on in there. So we're going to teach her some tolerating skills. There might be some social stories that can be written for her about, like, sometimes kids in my class get in trouble. When kids in my class get in trouble, that's okay because I'm not in trouble. I don't need to bite my nails or put my head down because I'm following directions and I'm doing good. When kids get in trouble in class, I can keep on doing my work. Like, it can kind of give her, like, this is gonna happen in your life and this is what you can do when it happens. And then once, like, the teacher or the aide or whoever is there, like, sees it happening, whoop, they put it right in front of her. She reads it. She's like, oh yeah, but it's gonna have to be taught.
Okay, because with her younger sister, she'll try to get whatever the sister wants to stop crying. Like, if the little sister is having tantrum because she's not getting something, she's like, okay, I'm gonna go get it for her.
She's reinforcing that
she
access
just
to
wants
tangible.
she just wants for her to stop behaving the way she is.
Okay.
So my older girl won't feel bad about it, so it's.
Yeah, it seems like in that situation, it seems like escape. She's wanting to escape that loud noise. So you can teach her to say, I'm gonna go to my room, or it's too loud, I've gotta go, or hey sister, can you stop crying? You can teach her ways to get out of that situation and still escape it, but in a socially appropriate way.
Thanks. My son is in a classroom. He's pretty good behavior-wise. He's great, but he does, like, he takes his pen, he does it, and sometimes he loses control of it and flicks out of his hand. It's distracting the other kids. He calls like flicking, it's like a stem, I guess. He does it at home in his room. He has like a full pencils. That's what it's like an escape. And when I come in, he hides them, but he's not doing it.
Yep.
But what do you do with that kind of behavior? That's stim-like behavior that's not necessarily awful, but it's distracting and it's not socially appropriate.
Well, you could do a couple different things. That seems to be automatic reinforcement, right? Something in and of that pen flicking behavior.
I asked him to do it,
Is-
he's like, it just feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good, but I like, what do you do with school?
So it could be taught that, like, he's only allowed to do the pen flicking when he is alone or when he's in a cubicle in the library, when, like, there's no one else to be distracted. That's when you could do it. So you could either teach it, or you could teach it even more kind of stringently, where, like, it's only allowed in your room. That way the bedroom itself will start to have control over the pen flicking behavior, and anytime he's picking flicking the pen outside of there, it can just be silently blocked by the staff member. Yeah, you could do.
So you wouldn't take it away completely, right?
I mean,
It's not awful, I mean,
yeah. Sometimes I flick a pen and like,
There's office meetings where they, people flick their pens through an entire meeting. And
Yeah.
some of the stuff I think we're trying to take away.
Yeah.
We do it
I
in
know,
house.
it's like, it got worse, like, is it just super annoying, or is it just like?
I have a hair twirler, and I've actually figured out that it's the soft that he likes. So there's a company called Fun and Function, with a
Yes.
bunch of stuff. So there's also an alternative, something that he can have that wouldn't fly around in the classroom, and I want for him.
and part of it too is I think a lot of times, this is just me on my soapbox, you don't have to agree or disagree, but sometimes kids with a disability sometimes get looked at with like a sharper lens and like, look at these behaviors, they need to stop these. But then you look around and like every other kid in the classroom is doing the same thing or worse, and we're still trying to decrease. Like some of it is kids being kids, and like it could be that he flicks his pen, but then the kids in the class can be taught to advocate for themselves and like, hey, that's distracting me, could you stop please? Like that could be like, it may not bother some kids, so he could be sitting next to kids that it doesn't bother, and if it does bother them, they could ask him politely to stop, or you could teach it to only do in your room.
Yeah, Caesar asked me, no one said anything, no one says anything to him, and he's going to sixth grade, nobody's, like, kids don't say anything, but it's kind of, I know, we can get.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the two, either if it's not interfering with him and his schoolwork and the other kids in the class, but if it is and it's stigmatizing or it's bothering others or he's not completing what he needs to complete, then I would add something where you can only do it in your room. Some other preventative strategies for escape maintained behaviors are token boards and behavior contracts, which we're going to get to, and then also setting expectations, right? And that's kind of what we talked about going into the store. Hey, we're going to go into the store. Here's what we're going to buy today. We're not going to buy a toy. We're going to buy this instead. What are we going to do in here today? We're going to not buy a toy. We're going to buy this and this. Tell me 2 things we're going to buy. Right, toy's not one of them. Here we go. And then as you get to the toy, remember, you're not buying a toy. And then so you're setting them up for success and giving them those reminders to help be successful. Preventative strategies for automatically maintained behaviors are you can reinforce a physically incompatible behavior. So you can reinforce when their hands are down or in their lap instead of flapping. Or instead of engaging in self-injurious behavior, you can reinforce chewing gum rather than mouthing items. You can also reinforce the absence of the behavior. Instead of self-stimulatory behaviors, the absence of them. So when they're not engaging in hand flapping, wow, I really like how your hands are quiet. Oh, wow, I really like how you're not reciting that SpongeBob episode, right? I really like how that's not in your mouth. You're reinforcing when it's not occurring. Preventative strategies. So non-contingent reinforcement is what we talked about, and I gave you the motivator. Another tool that's just like the motivator, I believe it's a little bit cheaper. It's called the Gym Boss, and it's like a watch, and it has a reset on it. That's one that you can wear too with a resetting timer. So non-contingent reinforcement is delivery of preferred items or activities that function as reinforcers for problem behavior. So just going over and saying, I love you, I'm so happy you're here today, you're so cute, I love your toes, and grabbing their toe, whatever it is, but providing them that attention because that's what's reinforcing. I like the way you're playing with those cars. Thank you for coming home and putting your stuff away. Or providing them their favorite snacks or their favorite game or access to the iPad or access to the Wii for free, not for doing anything, just because they are who they are. And it's 2:57 in the afternoon, right? Just because. A great thing to do with non-contingent reinforcement is schedule it before times when the child will not be given access to that for a while, right? So if you know that electronics seem to be a hard thing to hand over, They want a lot of electronics time. So if you know, like, we're getting ready to go to sister's soccer game, and then after the soccer game, I have to stop by the grocery store, and after the grocery store, I have to pick up dry cleaning. Oh my gosh, it's going to be 4 hours, and they're not going to have the iPad. Give them some iPad time right before you get out the door, so that they're kind of satiated on it, so they're less likely to be deprived of it. And it decreases the motivation to engage in the challenging behavior. Responsive strategies, how to respond. So even if we use a lot of preventative strategies and we're doing everything we can to set everyone up for success, problem behavior still happens, right? It's just a part of life. So how do we respond? Well, it depends upon the function. So we're going to go through and talk about how to respond when it's attention, reinforced, escape maintained, access maintained, and automatically maintained. And with all of these, our goal is to place the behavior on extinction. We're going to talk about what that means in just a minute. So here's an example. So Steve isn't getting any attention. Steve flicks his sister in the ear. And Steve is given a lecture about being nice to his sister. Every time I turn my back, Steve, you can't keep your hands off your sister. Why? Why can't I just get the dishes put away? Right? He's receiving a lot of attention after that, right? We want to stop it. We don't want to provide that attention. We want to put that behavior of flicking his ear on attention. Instead, nothing is said to Steve. Little sister gets a hug. Little sister gets attention. Whoa, Steve, right? So our replacement behavior is going to be this. Again, Steve's not getting any attention. What are we going to teach? We're going to teach Steve to say, Mom, can we play a game? Mom, look at this. Mom, come here, whatever the phrase is. And then after that, that's when we're going to give the attention. We're going to play the game. We're going to look at it. We're going to say, that's really cool, buddy. Wow, that's awesome. What a great job. We're going to now reinforce and provide the attention for the socially appropriate replacement behavior. Okay? So let's look at this one. So, some examples. We can attend and ignore. So, provide praise and attention to children behaving appropriately at least once per minute. That's a lot, right? But with the motivator, it can kind of help, but the more we're giving that attention for free and often, the less likely the challenging behavior is to occur. When undesirable behaviors occur, provide behavior-specific praise to children behaving appropriately. So if you have more than one child and Steve is engaging in challenging behavior and you want to say, Steve, knock it off, instead say, Katie, wow, you're doing a great job playing with those blocks. You're such a great builder. You're going to be a master builder with those Legos in no time, right? What happened? Steve engaged in some challenging behavior that he wants attention for. He didn't get attention. He got ignored, and sister got some high-quality attention, right? So driving home the point that, yeah.
So I just had something play out in my head between a couple of kids. With
Okay.
their scenario.
Not ours, right?
Not ours. Just
Okay.
hypothetically.
Okay.
One kid flicks the other kid in the ear.
Yep.
Okay. Then the other kid, does something to retaliate. Well, now you can't show positive attention to either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. What do you?
So in that situation, I wouldn't provide any verbal interaction with either. I would just walk in, guide one over here silently, guide one over here silently, wait until they're both engaging in something good, be like, whew, Katie, love how you're playing with those Legos now. Oh, look at you, Steve. Oh, you're playing Minecraft? That's pretty cool. Wait, separate it silently, no attention, and as soon as they're engaging in some good, socially appropriate behavior, provide some attention then. Okay. Oh, no, one second.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so my son is 6.5. He's just finished mainstream kindergarten, he's going to first grade. What do you do about, he doesn't want attention from the teacher. What he'll do, he can be a little bit immature socially, let's say. So he'll engage with, if they're waiting online, he'll start bumping his friend. Oh, he's getting a lot of negative attention, but it's from the peers. What do you do about that situation?
Well, we know what he's wanting. He's wanting attention from peers, right? So we need to teach him appropriate ways to get attention from peers. So teach him like, give me a high five, or hey, look at me, and he does like a funny dance. Something that's not invading their personal space. Maybe we could also write a social story about personal space, or teach him what it means to line up in line and be in line. Or
Here's the thing, he knows all that, and he
Okay.
can tell you that.
Mhm.
It's more the impulsiveness in the moment, so what do you physically do when he keeps bumping into his friend? I'm like, Owen, stop. What should the teacher be physically doing with him at that point? Because at first she was like, I'm gonna give him time out and lecture him. Then it got worse, because then he was getting attention from everybody. So what do you physically do? I know about teaching the behaviors,
Sure.
not reinforcing them, but what do you do when it happens? Like he pushes in front of the playground.
Sure. And again, shooting from the hip, because I haven't assessed. I would say that we want to block that behavior from occurring, but we want to do it without providing attention. So it could be that, if your son's standing here and there's a couple kids here, the teacher walks over and just stands with her back to them so that he can't bump into. And then she goes back, and I like how everyone's lined up. Everyone has their lunch boxes. Kara, you're the line leader. I need you to open the door. And then like a kid that's right next to him, ooh, Kyle, I like how still you're standing in line. And maybe step back if he's being still. Oh my gosh, Owen, you're being so still too. Look at you keeping your body to yourself. Nice job, hop back in line. Like something where they're blocking it to not allow it to occur, but as soon as he's doing what it is we want him to do, we need to give attention to that. Yeah.
Well, the situation, what they were saying, but what if they're sitting next to each other at dinner, and they start looking at each other, and you separate them?
Might not be that was
You don't need to be there, right? Yeah.
But they're not getting engaged in a toy at the time, their dinner is sitting in front of them, and they're hitting it. We separate them, we move the plates over, but then they want to get back together again.
Can you put yourselves in between them?
Yeah, I guess we could, but then we're still, unfortunately, fixing and cleaning and doing, I know the stuff that we're doing to curb the behavior.
Yep.
Take the time out to make it better for later.
Yep. It's a lot of work. Yeah. I think that's what's nice about us coming into the home and providing therapy is that we get to kind of get in there and roll up our sleeves first and get things established and parents can see oh, okay, this is doable. Okay, yeah. And then we fade the parents in, and you feel successful from the beginning because you've seen us kind of work through some kinks and fade you in and provide you that support and coaching and reinforcement that you need to get it done. Yeah, absolutely. Jeff?
And when we started this, to me, it was a natural thing to ignore the bad behavior so that we didn't reinforce it. But I found my wife, that's really rude to ignore. And it seems like that maybe that's more common here than somebody might have admitted. But
Sure, yeah, and it can seem rude to ignore, but I always go back to why are they doing the behavior? If they're doing it for attention, providing that attention and not ignoring is only going to strengthen and further that behavior and make it more likely to occur. So we need to nip it in the bud at the beginning, and if that means ignoring, yes. But then we don't have to just ignore. As soon as they're doing an appropriate behavior, attend right away and reinforce that appropriate behavior. We're not saying ignore and then 20 minutes goes by. We're saying ignore. Maybe it takes 30 seconds, and then they're playing. Wow, I really like how you put those blocks up. That's great. Yeah.
I was hearing from him that he was saying his wife and you were doing different things, and that's my question. We've done behaviors for probably 10 years. My boys are 13 and 15. And my husband is honest, and he says, can't do it, can't be consistent. And so I talked to the behaviors, I'm like, will they over time, because that's 13, learn that mom says this and she's gonna come down on you, and dad says this and there's gonna be a lot of noise, I'd walk outside, and I'm hoping there will be a time when he's like, oh, I'm being parented differently, because we're not gonna get the same.
And that may happen, but it's always, it might always, or often might come back to, let me just see what
Let me
mom's
give
gonna
it
do.
a shot, yeah.
like, yeah, but let me just try it again. Like they want to see if you're the strict one and dad's the lax one. They want what dad's
Oh,
selling.
yeah, they always ask.
Right, right. So they always want what dad's selling. So then they might go to you and they know what you have, but they're still every once in a while going to be like, maybe she's going to do the same thing. And that might continue for a very
And
long
is it
time.
appropriate to say, I'm asking you, just to really define?
Sure.
Because the direction's coming directly from me.
Yep.
Tonight, bedtime is 8 o'clock and I'm telling you.
Yep.
I'll put 'em on the
Absolutely.
bus.
Absolutely.
I would condition the husband to say, ask your mother.
There you go. Yeah.
I just need to say, because I have a granddaughter who's 5 years old with ACC, and my daughter and son-in-law have been employing ABA therapy for over 4 years, which has worked phenomenally well, not only with Alyssa, but also with the 3-year-old Riley. She's parented the exact same way. But I gave birth to 2 daughters, and the oldest one, 27 years ago, engaged in a behavior that drove my husband out of his mind. And it was, she just kept pushing her food onto her fork at dinner with her finger. She has a full brain, and she would not stop this behavior. And a girlfriend of mine said, there's a 6-week course going on at our local elementary school. Maybe you and I should go. So we went, and it was called Systematic Training for Effective Parenting. There is still a notebook, a workbook out there. They're still presenting this. And I think it was the beginning of ABA therapy, because everything that you've gone over were the things that we employed that within 2 weeks completely made that behavior extinct. And it was doing everything that she's saying. I had a list of phrases on my refrigerator to remind us, because we didn't have any of the electronic buzzers to remind you to say something nice to your child. It was like when she made her bed, or if she put her dish in the dishwasher. Lisa, great job doing that. And one of the most important things that I learned that to this day I use with my grandchildren, as well as having used with we have 5 daughters between us, was that I never said, I'm so proud of you. I always said, you must be so proud of yourself. Because when they do something and you say, I'm proud of you, it's all about you. When you say to them, you must be so proud of yourself. Look at that grade you just got on that paper. What a great job you did. And it's affected the way I think about and act with every human being I come in contact with. And that's what ABA therapy has done for our family. So I'm kudos, because this works.
Yeah.
I have a question about my 5-year-old who thinks he's a ninja. So him and his cousin are the exact same age, and they do their ninja moves or whatever, and then as soon as something happens where the other one doesn't win or whatever, they both are mad and they're fighting. It gets out of control. So my sister here too, we try to ignore it so that they don't get attention, but is there a different way to defer on other things?
I would start by teaching how to lose. So it could be playing a game with you, Shoots and Ladders, High Ho Cheerios, Candyland, and you let them win first, and then you model I didn't win this time, but good game. It was so much fun playing with you. And then the next time you play, you win, and then prompt him, I might win this time. What are some things you can say to me if I win? But teaching him how to lose and things you can do, and also teaching the phrase, if he loses, can we play again? Can we try again? So that he can request, I didn't like the outcome of that. Can we have a do-over?
They lose and then they get angry at each other, and then
Yeah, let's play again. Yeah. And if they both have the phrase, let's play again, then they might play 52 times, and then no one remembers how many times each other won or lost, and it might kind of.
A question on the attendant ignore. A lot of examples have been with multiple kids, but when you have either an only child or an environment where there's children around, how do you engage in really encouraging the positive behavior without waiting until that behavior ceases?
Sure. So if problem behavior occurs, you want to ignore until it's stopped and until they've engaged in something positive, and then provide attention to that. So if they're the only one at home, if it's just you and them, then you can, if they're engaging in challenging behavior, wait. Now they are engaging in positive behavior, or it could just be that you're wanting to reinforce them stopping and calming down. Wait 5 seconds. Hey, I really like how you have calm hand style. That's super nice. Do you want to help me set the table, or should I do it by myself? Allowing that choice back in. No, I don't want to set the table. Thanks for telling me that you didn't want to set the table. I'll totally get it. What do you want to do to kind of like get them back on track? Yeah.
Hi. So one of the things that I struggle with is my son, who's 5.5, has a temper tantrum, and like if I'm supposed to ignore it, sometimes he'll follow me during his temper tantrum.
Oh, yeah.
Just keep ignoring it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just
Yep.
okay. Yep. 20 minutes, just ignoring.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Just ignore. If he's wanting attention, is he doing it because he wants attention, or because you put something away, or?
Yeah. So let's say he's gotten in trouble or something. So I take whatever he's playing with away. I don't know. Or it's time to go to bed. He doesn't want to. He's not. Whatever it is. So he's upset because he's been putting in timeout, or I've taken something away, and so then he's having a tantrum.
Yeah. So a couple different things. I heard because something was taken away. So that's access, right? So in that case, ignoring may not do much because he's not wanting attention. He's wanting that item back.
Yeah.
So it could be teaching him like phrases of like, when can I have that back? And then you say tomorrow, or you say after lunch, or when you wake up from your nap. And you teach him to ask information, and then also tolerate denials and tolerate waiting. And for like the not going to bed, it seems like escape, like he doesn't want to go to bed. So having like a countdown or some transition warnings. Hey, we're gonna go to bed in 20 minutes. Hey, buddy, we're going to bed in 10. 2-minute countdown, just so you know. Next time I ask, I need you to come upstairs.
So mostly if I haven't done all the good things, like if I haven't done the proper parenting things, and then there's like the tantrums don't happen that often. Sometimes it's going to happen. Like I don't have time to go through all of this steps.
Sure. Sure.
I may be late for something. So he's having this tantrum because I've done everything wrong.
Yep.
Do I just ignore him still?
You are really on this side.
Like I've learned these things all the time, and I've learned like, a lot of things to do now, but
Sure.
I'm going to screw up again.
Yeah. I think anytime, if it's not for attention, if you know it's because he doesn't want to do something, or you took something away and you didn't do what you needed to do to set it up for success, then, and you know, like, oh, this is my fault, I screwed up. Give in early, give him the words. Prompt him to say like, Mom, can I have that for 5 more minutes? You know what, buddy, you can have it for 5 more minutes. Set a timer. I don't know if he has a concept of time yet. Set it for 1.5 minutes. He's got to get out the door. If he doesn't know how long 5 minutes is, set it for 1.5 minutes. Well, that's a timer. Time to go, buddy. You know, if it's bedtime and he's trying to escape it, be like, teach him like, if he's wanting to do something else, teach him like, can I go do whatever? Can I do one more puzzle? Like, give him those words if you know you didn't set it up for success. But sometimes the answer is no, and the answer is no, and you got to work through it. So it kind of just depends on what kind of time and effort you have to give to it at that moment. Yeah, but it's okay to, if you know that you kind of dropped the ball on some things at the beginning, it's okay to give in, but make them work for it. Don't just like let them throw the fit and scream and cry and then get it. Prompt them to say, can I have another turn? Can I have 2 more minutes? Can I finish this
I think the
puzzle?
problem for me is sometimes when he gets to the tantrum point, like you can't have a conversation at that point.
Then wait till he's starting to, ignore it until he's starting to calm down a little bit. I like how you're so calm. You can tell me, I want to finish that puzzle. Finish the puzzle? Yeah, you can finish the puzzle. Right? Yeah. Back there on the line.
I have a question. We're talking about that impulse, if they were like shouting at their child or something. How do you know it's not an input sensory disorder versus giving them negative attention for shouting? You know what I mean? Like,
Assessment, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how we know we are gonna look at that ABC data. If we see that what's happening right before they're standing in line, what's the behavior, they're bumping into a kid, and if there's never like a, stop, you need to wait nice and line. If it's just like nothing ever happens after that, no attention, kids don't move away, then that's going to kind of show us like, oh, there's probably something in and of that bumping that they're finding reinforcing, and then we can develop a plan from there.
But if you give them a hug and you're reinforcing this, right? Like if you try to like.
But you can teach them to ask for a hug, right? So if you see them bump once, you can say like, I need a hug. And then they say, I need a hug. Yeah, thanks for asking me for a hug. You needed some squeezes. Thanks for asking me for that input, for those squeezes. Once you see the behavior happening, don't feel like, oh, it's done and over with. Let that be a cue to you of like, this is where I can teach that replacement. It's always great to hit it before it happens, but you can even jump in there right when it does early on to start teaching and reinforcing those replacement behaviors.
I just want to say, one way that we know it's not input for my son, it doesn't happen when he is trying by himself. It happens only when there's a group of kids, you know, like they're in line or there's more than one kid in his class. So and maybe they're playing or, you know, he was playing or whatever. So it's just like a group. He doesn't do that. And he goes over to his friend's house. And it's like, but we saw that and we were like, just
Another thing too, my son, again, 19, Asperger's, autism, a little bit of Tourette's. Now, how do you know, I know normal behaviors, especially in child, you said, do different techniques. But what if my son, now his tics are, meow, you know, just a random little outburst that is obnoxious, tell them any parent. How do you know when to, you know, shut it down versus just, or especially when you're in public?
Sure. So there's a medical cause there, right? So I would, as the behavior analyst, before like putting a behavior reduction in place for the tics and the noises, I would talk to the doctor that diagnosed them and is treating that, just to see like what kind of.
See, certain, like, the family, he's not here, but the family members that he is with currently, he doesn't do it for them or with them, you know, the different tics. So then it's, you know, then you have the question of, is it their disorder, their disability, or is it, let's see, I know it aggravates mom, so I'm going to do it with mom. I'm not going to do it with grandma because I know grandma will just not acknowledge me at all. So I'm going to do it with mom because I'm going to get whatever reaction I want from her, or whether it's shh, be quiet, or whatever my reaction is.
Yep.
So I think a lot of it is, I don't know if it's just attention getting, or you really can't help it.
Right.
Because I know we can cut it off.
Yep.
It's been, you know, proven, and so sometimes it's hard for me to, like,
And that's where we always go back to the beginning, those very first few slides where we talked about what's behavior. Behavior is something that's observable and measurable, and it's reinforced, and there's something in the environment, whether it's the physical environment or us in the environment that's reinforcing that to make that occur. There's something going on in the environment, either the people that are making up the room, the lights in the room, the sounds in the room, the smells in the room, your reaction, grandma's non-reaction. There's something in there that's controlling that behavior. So it's really us assessing and taking ABC data to see what's happening right before, what's happening right after. Bingo, here we go. This is what's maintaining it. This is when it is occurring. This is when it's not occurring. We don't want it to occur. So let's make conditions more like this when possible, or respond in this way when possible. Yeah.
Okay, it's 5:30, so class is out, and we all get to go practice what right?
Right now.
Okay.
Thank you.